briefing. My name is Paul Livesey and I'm a Chartered Structural Engineer. I'm the Scheme Manager for Cross UK and I work closely with the wider Cross team and our expert panels. I also have responsibility for managing the systems of Cross US and Cross Australasia. Before joining Cross, I spent almost 30 years as a consulting engineer designing buildings across many sectors, including retail, residential, education, commercial, leisure, and industrial. Firstly, I'm going to discuss the recent expansion of Cross UK, and I'll start with the reasons for this expansion. The dreadful Grenfell fire tragedy in London in 2017 led to the loss of 72 lives. The UK government's response to this tragedy was a public inquiry which has recently closed. The inquiry's role was to examine the circumstances surrounding the fire, including its causes, how it spread to the whole building, and the adequacy of the regulations and safety measures in place. Concurrently, Dame Judith Hackett was appointed to undertake a review of building regulations and fire safety. This became known as the Hackett Report, and she recommended wide-ranging changes to the way in which the building industry operates. Hackett made over 50 recommendations which were adopted into law via the Fire Safety Act and the Building Safety Act. The Building Safety Act, which became law in England this year, introduces a new building safety regulator, who are part of the UK's Health and Safety Executive. They'll have responsibility for the safety and standards of all buildings, improving competence within the industry, and implementing a more stringent regulatory regime for the design, construction, and operation of higher risk buildings. The Building Safety Act additionally creates a new body for the regulation of construction products. Cross has been working with and providing advice to all these government bodies since Grenfell. Higher risk buildings have been defined as residential buildings of 18 metres or taller, or with 7 or more stories. For these buildings, a more stringent regulatory regime will be adopted. This will include clear responsibilities for duty holders, higher competence requirements, the introduction of gateways or hold points during the design and construction process, the maintenance of a golden thread of information over the building's lifetime, and the mandatory reporting of fire and structural safety occurrences. In addition, safety cases will be required for all existing higher risk buildings. These will need to identify the building's major fire and structural risks and how they are being managed and controlled. They're estimated to be over 12,500 higher risk buildings in England, and therefore the size of this task should not be underestimated. Additionally, the Act requires a voluntary occurrence reporting system to be implemented. The new regulator is required to operate a mandatory reporting system for the reporting of fire and structural safety occurrences within higher risk buildings. A mandatory report is required to be submitted if an incident during the design, construction, or occupation of a building without being remedied would likely have led to the risk of death or injury to a significant number of people. The Building Safety Regulator is also required to appoint a person to operate a voluntary occurrence reporting system. The requirement for this system is based upon the recommendations from Dame Judith Hackett following Grenfell. She recommended that Cross should be strengthened and expanded to cover fire safety reporting, in addition to structural safety reporting, to allow the sharing of lessons learned across the industry. This expansion and strengthening of Cross UK has been funded by the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, the Institution of Structural Engineers, and the Institution of Civil Engineers. Cross received a government grant for the initial phases of its expansion, and the work included the expansion to cover fire safety reporting, undertaking user experience research, developing a website and safety report management system based upon that research, and developing a communication and stakeholder engagement strategy to further promote Cross. Further annual grants have been received from the government for the continued operation and maintenance of the expanded Cross UK. This investment by the government was to enable the Building Safety Regulator to appoint Cross as the formal voluntary occurrence reporting system under the Building Safety Act. The initial work undertaken was to ensure that the expansion of Cross was relevant to its users, both existing and potential. In late 2019, we commissioned a specialist agency to undertake user research to understand how the service could be expanded in a way that makes it simple and easy for people to share information and learn from others. The research consisted of an online survey together with in-depth interviews, and the feedback can be summarised as follows. Those who had heard of Cross were very complimentary, but many had not heard of us. There was a concern about a blame culture in the industry and a worry about making reports. People are busy, and therefore our reports need to be set out in such a way that it's easy to ascertain relevant information quickly. And the submission of safety reports should be a simple process. Again, the theme of lack of time. Another part of the survey was to test options for a new name and logo. The name Cross was established and respected, so a new acronym was devised and approved by users. Confidential reporting on structural safety became collaborative reporting for safer structures. The acronym was reworded to better reflect the benefits of the system as it expanded to collect and share reports on fire safety as well as structural safety. Cross continues to anonymise all safety reports received, but the term confidential was replaced with collaborative to try to remove some of the nervousness of reporting found during the research. The user research suggested that people are overloaded with information. Cross utilises all these common methods of communication. We have Twitter and LinkedIn accounts and a website, and we contact our subscribers via email when we issue a newsletter. We're all subjected to information overload, and an average user can receive up to 100 emails per day. Therefore, the need for information presented in a clear and concise manner necessitated the safety report style to be considered in more detail, such that users can quickly ascertain if the report is of interest to them. This is an example of a recent structural safety report submitted to Cross UK. The report was submitted by a third-party checking engineer who discovered several issues after the balcony was installed. The reporter submitted a photograph of the as-installed balcony, but the photograph has been redrawn as a sketch to ensure that there is no possibility of a reader being able to identify the building. The building is formed of typical brick and block cavity wall construction, and the balcony is bolted to the 100mm brickwork skin with resin-fixed bolts. The check-in engineer found the designer had calculated pull-out loads, assuming an infinitely stiff steel channel to the rear, and then determined the bolt loads based on the shear loads only, ignoring the tension loads. The bolts were found to be significantly overloaded when utilising the correct loads. The problem occurred across multiple balconies, and as the balconies were installed, the solution adopted was to install corner posts, and a potentially dangerous structure was avoided. The initial concept of bolting a large balcony to a cavity wall was flawed, and the problem occurred due to inadequate oversight by a suitably experienced engineer. So based on the user experience research and discussions with our designers, a concept was formed as to how best to represent this information within our reports. This report now appears on our website in this form. It starts with a simple overview. This is constrained to 1 or 2 sentences such that a busy user can quickly ascertain if it is relevant to them. This is then followed by the key learning outcomes from the report. These are split into relevant disciplines, such as the key learning outcomes for structural engineers or the key learning outcomes for architects. Again, a user can quickly assess relevant information. The main body of the report follows the key learning outcomes. This is an edited version of the reporter's submission, where the Cross team has removed all identifying information from the report. This includes the removal of all names, products, and locations to create an anonymous report. The final section of the report contains the expert panel comments. This section contains a technical assessment of the report and is where our structural expert panel provide their opinion on what went wrong and how it may have been avoided. Important points are accentuated in bold for readers who are skim reading the report. Over the years, Cross has received a series of reports regarding balcony safety issues. This, together with tragic events within the public domain, triggered the release of a Cross Safety Alert. This alert was written with contributions from Cross US, across Australasia and across UK, and highlights the common issues associated with the design, construction and maintenance of balconies. As well as developing a new website, a new system has been designed to manage the receipt and processing of all safety reports. The new website consists of two parts. The front end, where a user can view all the safety information and can submit a safety report, and a back end which contains the safety report management system. The management system is only accessible by the Cross team and is a contained system which manages the processing of reports from receipt through to publication. A submitted report must pass through 25 stages before it is published. The report is firstly triaged, where the initial submission is checked to assess if it's within the scope of Cross, and all identifying information is also removed at this stage. The report then passes through various stages, including the expert panel review, editorial, technical and legal reviews, and finally a review by the reporter before publication. The expert panels and the legal team all provide their services pro bono for the good of the community and to advance building safety. The development of this system and the website was funded by the UK government and is being used successfully by Cross. Each safety report processed is also assigned specific taxonomy. This diagram shows part of the taxonomy tree. The actual tree consists of 475 separate items that may be assigned to a report, but a report is only assigned relevant taxonomy. Additional taxonomy includes the building or structure type, the building height, product type, design method, or building use, amongst others. A report may be specific to a particular material, such as concrete, and each term has more specific children, such as precast concrete or pre-stressed concrete, which can be further selected. The categorization system is essential for the search engine function, and taxonomy is also critical for the analysis of data at a later stage. This data can be used to understand the nature of the reports received. The pie chart on the left indicates the occurrence of a specific construction material within the safety report database. Unsurprisingly, the most commonly used construction materials are represented, with steel or concrete being tagged in approximately 2/3 of the reports where the material taxonomy has been recorded. Similarly, the pie chart on the right indicates which project stage is most often tagged within the safety report database. Where project stage taxonomy has been recorded, approximately 1/2 of safety reports relate to the construction stage and approximately 1/3 relate to the design stage. Similar analyses can be undertaken, for example, for building height, structural form, or building age. So a huge amount of time and money has been invested in the expansion of Cross UK, but how do we measure its success? Post Grenfell, Dame Judith Hackett indicated that the current system of building regulations and fire safety is not fit for purpose and that a culture change is required within the UK construction industry. The success of Cross, or when those involved in the industry realise the importance of sharing lessons learned, is considered to be one method of measuring culture change. But it is understood that this is a staged process and starts with people having an awareness of Cross. They will then need to interact and trust us before we achieve our initial goal of receiving more safety reports. To some extent, we can record this process through the number of visitors to our website, our followers on social media, and those who subscribe to receive our newsletter, and ultimately by the number of reports we receive. As an example of these metrics, this shows the growth in subscribers to our newsletter. We currently have almost 11,000 subscribers. However, there are 30,000 members of the Institution of Structural Engineers, 90,000 members of the Institution of Civil Engineers, and 10,000 members of the Institution of Fire Engineers. Add to this all others working in the design, construction, or management of buildings who may benefit from Cross, and you'll see that there is the potential for significant growth. The work of Cross and designing and building safe structures is considered so implicit to the fundamental purpose of the Institution of Structural Engineers that all members of the institution will automatically be subscribed to Cross on an opt-out basis during next year. This will substantially increase the number of subscribers, and we are in discussions with other institutions regarding this initiative. The journey has just commenced, and we have much further to go to promote cross before we see the much needed culture change in the UK construction industry. Thank you very much for your time.